welcome everyone to Body Talk with Cindy. I am so thrilled tonight. We have a wonderful guest. Had a little miscommunication, so we don't have a picture yet of her, but her name is Lynn Daniel, and she has made an amazing transformation in her life. We know that the purpose of Body Talk with Cindy is just kind of deal with those issues of obesity, body image, everything that we have to deal with on a daily basis about our body and so forth. And we've talked about a lot of different diets and lifestyles, etc. I think that Lynn has found one that's definitely works for her. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I sure do appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight and to meet with you in this forum. And also it's been such a joy to know you in person too, here in Durham with our lifestyle, Duke Medicine Lifestyle Clinic, low carb support group with Dr. Eric Westman. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. I tell you, I was blown around, but I'll tell you how I found out even about Lynn in the first place. Jean Hedges, who is a friend of mine, she invited me to join the support group on Facebook. And so I joined there, and I started hearing about, posts and so forth. And Lynn is really the moderator of that group. And so then I was kind of looking, and the next thing I saw a before and after picture, and Lynn has lost almost 200 pounds in the last few years, and which is totally amazing. And it's not by a diet; it's just by adopting a different lifestyle, and that's a low carb lifestyle. Tell me a little bit about your history, Lynn. Have you always struggled with weight, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember. I think the first diet I ever went on, in fact, my mother wrote about it in my baby record in the baby book that she kept for me, ages 1 to 12 or whatever. At age 10, the first reference, that I have, and I specifically remember going to my first Weight Watchers meeting at age 10, and my mom wrote about it in my baby book. She said, I'm so proud of Lynn. We, meaning my mother and I, have been dieting together now for 3 weeks, and Lynn has lost 12 pounds. That was at age 10.
Wow.
And I was at the time she wrote down the information. I was 4'10", and after losing that weight, after being on Weight Watchers for 3 weeks, I weighed 124 pounds. So that is the first real, written record that I have. I know that I've always, I was always the little chubby girl in class in my elementary school years, and then going into high school, I lost a lot of weight. I'd say maybe 40 pounds between the summer of 8th and 9th grade, and then just really had a love-hate relationship with food from that point forward, because it was always all or nothing. I was either always starving to death or or eating and then starving again. I was very active in high school, and I had I maintained a normal weight during those high school years, but it was always working out, exercising, and eating rice cakes, and doing all or nothing stuff all over again, or going for weeks on end eating nothing but grapefruit and yogurt, or grapefruit and cottage cheese, or that kind of stuff all through college. I was a singer, dancer, during my college years in the summertime at Walt Disney World in Florida. This is the early 80s. And so keeping up a rigorous dance schedule with shows and performances was very, very active. So I was, my metabolism was in high gear, but still not a real healthy relationship with food. And when it got to, into my 20s and 30s, where I end up in professional positions, desk jobs. The metabolism just really slowed down to the point that when I hit 40, I guess the hormones kind of come into play all along, but certainly then my metabolism slowed down, and it became more and more difficult for me to maintain any weight that I lost. In fact, it was just much easier to gain it, whatever I did, or didn't do. So by the time I reached 49 years old, I weighed 324 pounds. I'm 5'4", and I had taken care of my mom for 8 years at that time, prior to her passing away from complications of type 2 diabetes at age 74. And I just knew that was way too young to die. And I didn't want that to be my story. So, fortunately, we live in the town where the world's leading expert is in residence at Duke University Medical Center, Duke University Health System, Dr. Eric Westman. He's the leading researcher in ketogenic nutrition, low-carb diet, if you will, for the prevention and reversal of disease. And he would tell you it's not a weight loss diet, but it is a mighty nice side effect. So I can tell you, I started low-carbing in November of 2009. And as of today, I have lost right at 200, or very, very close to, not quite, right at 200 pounds. So I am back at my college weight and healthier than ever before. So I am overjoyed, and it's real hard not to want to share the good news with other folks.
Right. And that is completely amazing, especially,
Yeah.
I guess, like from that age of 40 to, what did you say, like 48 or?
49. I just turned 52. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, but really, really, I would say starting in my mid 30s up to,
Started gaining weight.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I always did have to struggle with it. And the crazy thing is I was always hungry. I mean, always hungry, no matter, you know, what I was eating or what diet plan I was doing, and I've done
Right.
all of them. I've done all of them.
Right.
But this was the only one that I've really been able to sustain. And it's because I'm not hungry. That's it. And the
Right.
food is delicious. Real food is so good.
Right.
Um,
Well,
because I do love to eat. I do love good food.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Um, so did you end up with, when you gained the weight, did you end up with any of the diseases, the obesity diseases?
That is the miracle of it all. There wasn't anything that was showing at that point. I was not showing prediabetes. I was not showing, um, anything indicating that, but I knew that if it kept up, I would. I
Yes.
think it's nothing short of a miracle that I wasn't diabetic or pre-diabetic at that point. Um, because I just couldn't, it's a miracle to me that it
Right.
wasn't that way.
Now, how did you hear
So
about Dr. Westman?
my wonderful boss, actually. I work at Duke University Health System with wonderful clinical educators, clinical nurse educators,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss had actually seen Dr. Westman. A couple of the folks in my office had, and they had wonderful results. We're seeing wonderful results, and it was actually through her that I heard about, and I worked up the courage to make an appointment to go see
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Westman. So yeah, I can attribute that to my the really wonderful, wonderful woman and wonderful leader at Duke, who had a big impact on me personally and professionally. So yeah.
So I know I've seen you, and I was amazed that you really, as much weight as you've lost, you don't have
hmm
any loose skin. I mean, hardly any.
Isn't that funny? I mean, and that's probably the biggest question that I get is, what about all the loose skin? And I have no problem telling anybody that asks me about it.
Mm-hmm.
I lost the weight at a pretty, I mean, it wasn't great big gobs of weight coming off, at
Right.
weekly. I'd say I was averaging about a pound and a half to 2 pounds a week.
Right.
Um, I know, Dr. Westman tells us, especially with women, as we get older, it is going to become more difficult to drop
Right.
a lot of weight fastly, very quickly. So I feel like I lost it at a pretty steady and consistent
Mm-hmm.
rate, um, so that everything kind of had a chance to fall back into place, if you will, or adjust into
Right.
place. Um, I also know that I drank a lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And based on some of the lectures that I've heard over the years, that, you know, maintaining proper hydration and just, focusing on instilling and following, my plan or the
Right.
habits and the eating healthy, nutritionally dense food goes a long way in helping us, um, just nourish ourselves from the inside out. And I think that really does. I think that shows not only for me, but for other folks who are following it as well. Skin tone is definitely better. The my skin is smoother. I did at one point have some crow's feet happening around my eyes and stuff. That's gone. I just It's been a miracle all the way around. So, the skin, I figure I didn't have the kind of funds or funding or money or whatever
Right.
to pay for any kind of surgery. I wasn't going to be able to afford to do that kind of thing. So,
Right.
I'll take a little bit of loose skin. I'll take that any day
Right.
as long as all my other indicators
Right.
are in the shape they're in. So I'm
Right.
pretty happy with that.
And we did get a picture of Lynn up, and she is beautiful.
Oh,
She
you
is
are so
really a
kind.
gorgeous woman. And if you look
Well,
at the before and after, she has not been aging. She's been getting younger looking.
oh my gosh, you. That's why you're my friend, Cindy. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, one
yeah,
reason, one
definitely.
reason.
Now,
I appreciate that.
I want to talk a little about the low carb lifestyle, because
Hmm.
even though I haven't eaten like any sugar or flour or whatever, I don't think I've been strict enough. And I tell me about, I mean, after 2 years or so on the program, are you still on the main or on the induction?
I am. I know, and this is, along the way, a little bit of trial, a little bit of error, and,
Mm-hmm.
some wake up calls for me along the way. I eat right at 20 total grams of carbohydrate a
Mm-hmm.
day, which is the protocol that Dr. Westman has for his clinic, the Duke Lifestyle Medicine Clinic here in Durham.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that he doesn't move people into, more carbohydrate
Right.
as you get closer to your goal. I think he does a wonderful job of teaching us how to find out what your optimal carb level is so that you can maintain and not gain back,
Right.
which is something I never knew before. But I still want to lose about 15 more pounds. I would be thrilled to pieces to lose 20 more. But I'm good. Even if I didn't lose anything else anymore, I'm happy with where I am.
Right.
But to maintain that, I know that I really can't eat. I can't eat over 23 or 23 to 25 total grams of carbohydrate a day. And the thing is, if I do, I definitely see water weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I keep it below or right at or under 20 total grams of carb a day, I am not hungry. And that has been another miracle in all of this for me, just simply because all those years from age 10 to age 49, I was on some kind of diet, quote unquote, some way, shape, or form. I was on some kind of diet, and I was always hungry, whether it was Weight Watchers,
Right.
whether it was OptiFast, whether it was, oh, what were those pills that we used to take in the 80s, Dexatrim pills with Slim
Right.
Fast shakes and, just crazy
Right.
combination
Right.
stuff. I was always hungry. And what the truth of the matter, and this is what I've, have learned and continue to learn, my body simply cannot handle carbohydrate. I simply cannot handle it. And so that these days when I see, you know, when I see folks who are struggling with weight, I know in my heart of hearts it is not because, and this brings up a lot of memories and feelings of feeling like, well, gosh, I'm fat and I'm ugly, and if I had more self control, and if I just got myself reined in, and if I just did this or did that, it's amazing. It's not us. It is what we have been taught that is wrong, in terms
Right.
of how to really nourish our bodies. So I continue to eat. I continue to eat right at about 20 total grams of
Right.
carbohydrate a day. Um,
And I know that some people are less sensitive and, they can work up. And like you said, I guess it's trial and error when they get to their
mhm,
goal weight or where they want to weigh. Um,
right.
and men seem to be able to handle a few more than women,
Oh yeah, just
typically.
simply because of the muscle mass. They're
Right.
going to burn it. They're going to burn it
Right.
faster, and they're not dealing with the hormones either.
Right.
So, or not the same ones that we're dealing
Right.
with.
Now, have you
So,
exercised along the way, or how has that?
I initially I did not because my joints really could not take it
Right.
at the weight I was. My joints, I hurt. It hurt to exercise,
Right.
and so Dr. Westman just said, take that guilt trip off of your plate. Don't even go there. He said, when you feel ready to move around a little more, do it. And I was a dancer. I love
Mm-hmm.
dance, and always have. So I'd say after I lost. I got into mid 200, around
Mm-hmm.
250 pounds, about 70 pounds of weight loss, 80 pounds of weight loss. I started getting back into some dance, and I loved it. And you may laugh. You promise me you won't laugh now, Cindy, but I'm a belly dancer. So I heard you. I heard you laughing. I heard you laughing. I can't see you laughing, but I know you're laughing. I figured I was built for it. So what the heck? Anyway. I got back into that because yeah, at one point during oh gosh, maybe 20 years ago, I was taking belly dance and I loved it. I
Mm-hmm.
also took flamenco, Spanish
Right.
dance.
Yes.
We taught that when I lived in Miami Beach a few years ago now, and was a dancer. My college job, I was a dancer at
Right.
Disney, entertainer in the shows and the parades and stuff.
Right.
So I got back to what I loved, and it was really not so much focusing on getting exercise as it was focusing on doing the things that made me feel alive and made me feel at home again in my body.
Right.
And dance and music have always done that. So it really was a joy to rediscover that and to appreciate it. Like I never have before. I'll just be honest with you. It has been a thrill to get back to it. So much so that this past November, I've started taking ballroom dance lessons, and I'm having a blast, absolute blast. So
That sounds
it's
like fun. I was at a meeting earlier today, and I know with the low carb, you've been doing a support group. You've been doing like a little meeting in between
yeah,
for the month that you've been doing dance or
yeah.
going to the dance studio there. So I actually went by a dance studio here in Cary. It was like Fred Astaire Dance Studio or
Yeah.
something. And I thought about that, and I was like, oh, I should
And
go
you,
in
and
there.
you should down the road on Thursday night and come to the beginner class with me. That's just come on
Now, are
over.
you teaching those or?
Not. I'm getting back to being a student again. I'd never taken formal ballroom dance
Mm-hmm.
lessons. And when I say ballroom, I'm talking about the Latin dances like
Right.
salsa salsa and cha-cha and rumba and samba and tango, which are so much fun. And then there are the smooth dances, which are like foxtrot and waltz. And at the studio here in Durham, our instructors are professional ballroom dancers. Most of them are from the Ukraine, and then we have two American instructors as well.
Oh,
Fabulous. They are just fabulous. So, Cindy, you just come on over here because I'm telling you, I'll send you email with all the
okay.
details. But you come up, you can personally invite. It is a blast. It is a blast. And the beautiful thing is that you see people there, all ages, all sizes, all levels of dance, from never done it before in my life
Right.
to to people who've been dancing all their lives. And there are some students over there that are in their 90s, and it is just a joy. It's a joy to be with them.
Well,
And
you know
people
what?
are
It seems
there.
like it's just a very social and fun way to get exercise, also. And
I almost have to stop and remind myself, at Duke we have this team like Get Moving for
right,
health, and I'm not. Some people are counting steps. Some people are counting, how many steps have you taken? How many minutes are you exercising?
right.
I forget that it's exercise, so I forget to count. I mean, I forget to track it.
Well, let me just invite our listeners to call in. We open for any questions you might have for Lynn, or any experiences perhaps you've had with a low carb lifestyle. The number is 919-518-9773. Again, 919-518-9773. Now, Lynn, I guess your story resonates quite a lot with me, and just my history of obesity, etc. And of course, I have had the type 2 diabetes and the sleep apnea and, high blood pressure, the things caused by just obesity. But, those things I'm working on and getting under control. What is your typical day like, say a meal, or what you eat during the day?
One of the things, well, I'll just start you out.
Okay.
In the morning, um, I will have a cup of coffee and start out with a cup of coffee with, about a tablespoon of heavy whipping cream. I'll usually drop in some Splenda. And on my way out of the door, I may have, three of the little link sausages or a couple of pieces of bacon and some cheese. Um, and by midday, if I'm hungry, um, I don't eat unless I'm hungry. That's the other thing that,
Okay.
that I have found. So I'm able to cut back pretty easily on
Mm-hmm.
the amount of food that I eat. But a typical snack might be midday, um, say some pieces of celery and sour cream that I've mixed some salad dressing like Hidden Valley Ranch
Right.
or Good Seasons dressing into about 16 ounces of sour cream, not the low fat, but the real deal.
Right.
Um, and that makes a real nice savory kind of snack. Lunch might be today. I just melted some cheese and had some pieces of pepperoni, and it was kind of a faux pizza, if you will.
Right.
Gave me all the flavor that I wanted, and that'll usually hold me over until I get home for dinner. If I want some coffee or tea in the afternoon, I'll get that. There have been times when, I might go in and grab some more cheese or have some extra salad that I'll eat in the
Right.
afternoon if I'm hungry. Always adding, olive oil or the good fat to keep to keep me full.
Right.
Uh, and then dinner tonight, we had steak on the grill and some roasted vegetables, some onions and bell peppers, and a tiny bit of red wine. So um, I'm not hurting. I am
No.
absolutely not hurting. And dessert, I might have 2 or 3 tablespoons of a chocolate mousse that I make, and it's a real deal chocolate mousse. And everything is as minimally processed as possible. But I'd say the only thing that that's different between the chocolate mousse I make and the one that you might find in Julia Child's recipe book is that I use Splenda and she uses sugar. But
Right.
that's pretty much it.
Right. So are you using like cocoa powder with that, or do you
I
use
am. Oh yeah, and I love the like the Ghirardelli or the Hershey's dark chocolate
right?
cocoa powder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the straight up. It's not sweet, but I'll add some Splenda or Truvia or stevia, to
Right. Right.
sweeten a little bit. Yeah.
Well,
So
so I'm noticing something here, a pattern here, and I know that I look, there's all, like with everything, there's all types of variations of the low carb lifestyle. And I know that I have found that if I use some of the low carb bars and things, that
uh
I don't seem to do as well.
yeah. Yeah, like I know that I really had to eliminate those because they would stall me. Do you find that
Yes.
they stall you out?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating because on the bars, for example, if I can mention one that I know that I have to be real careful with, that now the Atkins bars, they're wonderful, they're convenient.
Right.
It's sure better than the alternative,
Right.
going for something else that might be higher in carbohydrate. But I know that I've really got to watch sugar alcohols.
Right.
So I mean, even to the point that I will count a piece of sugar-free gum, um, as
Right.
carb. I will count those 2 grams of sugar alcohol in my gum, my sugar-free gum, toward that 20 grams of total carb a day, just because I'm very, very sensitive to
Mm-hmm.
sugar alcohols as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really why I try to stick with um, you know, real food versus, um, when I say real food,
Mm-hmm.
fresh as possible. I
Mm-hmm.
heard a friend say one time, if it's got more than 5 ingredients in it, and if I can't pronounce half of them, I better not eat it. I
Right.
thought that was a
Right.
pretty good rule of thumb.
Now,
Um,
explain that to me also, because I know that, and at the support group, Dr. Westman, I hear him say that he looks at total carb count and not net carbs.
oh goodness,
So,
yeah. Not now, and please, audience and Cindy, if correct me if I get this wrong. I always draw a blank on stuff like this. Total carbohydrate will be the total grams of sugar, alcohols, or I'm sorry, sugar, which would be starch.
mm-hmm.
Sugar and starch interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
The sugar in uh, a food and the dietary fiber. So when you're talking about net carbs, I believe net carbs is minus the fiber grams.
Okay.
Fiber, I think that's right, because the idea has been that the dietary fiber, which is part of the total carb count,
Right.
dietary fiber doesn't affect, um, you know, your blood sugar. It's just
Right.
kind of passing through, and it doesn't really have an effect on it. From what uh, I'm not going to be able to quote Dr. Westman exactly, but I believe the information is out there that you know that it really may. That
Mm-hmm.
fiber and dietary fiber counts and grams and all of that may indeed affect our blood sugar. And of course, the whole one of the big purposes of going for a low carb diet, especially for if diabetes is of concern or
Mm-hmm.
pre-diabetes, the whole idea is to keep that blood sugar stable without, you know, keep the blood sugar as stable as possible. And um, there's some evidence out there that fiber may indeed impact that as well.
Okay.
So
So what
that's
you
why
look at on the label is the total, carbs,
Yes,
not the carbs minus the fiber.
correct.
Okay. And you keep that under 20.
Right. I'm looking at it makes it a lot easier, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Was never I was never very good with the whole math thing growing up, and I it just has made it a lot easier just to focus on total carbohydrate, um, because that's naturally going to um, ensure that I'm eating normally a small
Right.
usually right within the guide or right within the guideline
Right.
and following along with what Dr. Westman
And
was.
I think to do that, you're right. I think you're going to have to eat natural foods because
Mhm.
when you start getting some of these processed foods, you know, because even some of the protein bars is like this many carbs and this much fiber and this much sugar alcohol, and you subtract it all out, and there's so many net. But
Mhm.
I guess there really is a lot more carbs than you're thinking when you're
Mhm.
eating those.
I'm trying to remember which. I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly because I haven't looked at one of the bars in a long time. But if I just were counting the net, um, the net carbs, it was like three. Well, heck yeah, I can fit 3 grams of
Right.
I could 3 grams of carbohydrate into my
Right.
20 grams a day. But if I eat the whole bar, if I look at the whole count, it was
Right.
like 22 total grams of carbohydrate.
Right.
That's totally blowing me out of ketosis. And the other thing I think to remember, um, is that we're really asking our bodies to switch fuel sources. We're really switching from, it would be like taking a car, moving a car from a gasoline burning engine to an ethanol burning engine. You
Mm-hmm.
can't mix those two fuel sources and get that car down the road. That's what kind of hit home with me. If I'm going to mess around with my carb count, if I'm going to add, and carb meaning sugar or
Mm-hmm.
starch or what have you, our bodies don't care what it is, whether it's sugar, whether it's starch, whether it's, a piece of corn or whether it's
Right.
cotton candy from the state fair. A carb is a carb is a carb, and it's all going to metabolize as sugar. So if my concern is to to optimize my engine, my body to burn stored fat, then I know that I've got to eat a certain way. And if I want to see the positive benefits of that, then I'm going to have to be a little more disciplined in terms of my carb count.
Right.
Um,
So do you
Now,
actually count your carbs
I've
throughout
kind
the
of
day?
throughout the day, I've gotten to a point now. I'm not writing it down. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
journaling it. I've kind of gotten to a point where I've been doing it for so long now that I
Right.
know, it's almost an intuitive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other beauty of it is I'm not hungry. That was the thing that was driving my food consumption before. I was hungry. I was always thinking about the next meal
Right.
because blood sugar was up and down, even though I wasn't, technically diabetic or even
Right.
showing as pre-diabetic. I was starving all the time.
Right.
And it's amazing what can happen once you remove that constant hunger.
Mm-hmm.
I know doctors Finney and Volek in The Art and Science of Low Carb Living, a wonderful book. If folks haven't read that before, I highly recommend it. Um, at one point, doctors Finney and Volek say, at some point, you get to a point where you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to worry, not think about it, but you're
Right.
not, it's not obsessing
Mm-hmm.
about calorie count like I used to obsess about calorie counts. I do not about the carb counts because I know what I can eat. I keep what I can eat around me all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so that if I am hungry, I, which really rarely happens, I kind of manage that like people who are in chronic pain, manage breakthrough pain. You take your medication so that you don't have that pain breaking through. In the case of a low carb diet, you keep those things around you and accessible,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are, feeling a little bit hungry. You're medicating, not medicating that, but you're
Right.
satisfying you're taking care of it so that it doesn't get out of control, so that that hunger pain doesn't drive you to do something that you don't want to do.
Right.
But Finney and Volek said at some point, it just feels right. And
Right.
that's the point. I can honestly tell you that's where I am. Now, does it mean that I don't does it mean that I don't overdo? No, it doesn't mean that I don't overdo. I'll tell you that nuts are my trigger, and I had more nuts over the holidays than I should. So I'm really having to hunker down to get about 5 pounds off right now.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about it is, if we kind of know what those triggers are, then I just have to be very aware of backing away from it and then doing something about it immediately. Just getting back to my 20 grams of total carbs a day.
Right.
So I
Well,
enjoyed the holidays, though. Don't think that I think that's the other beautiful thing about our low carbing. They're beautiful. They're beautiful options in terms of, what you can have and what you can eat. And I make a low carb cheesecake that, if I don't tell people it's a low carb food, they have no idea. So it's a lot of fun to take that to a holiday gathering. For
right.
it.
Well, I think as far as the hunger, and I can tell when I eat something, like if I eat something out and it has a little bit of sauce or something on it, it's even hard there unless you get something that's grilled. Um, I'm starving after the meal. So
Yeah.
uh, I guess you probably have experienced that yourself,
You
where
know
you
what?
eating actually makes you hungrier.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I think Dr. Westman would say carb creep kind of comes into play.
Right. Right.
Um, the way to avoid that, I've learned the way to avoid that is, for example, when we're at our support group meeting and we order, kebabs, I'll ask for butter to go with my kebabs and with my grilled vegetables. I'll ask for some butter to put on top of my steak. It's been very, very interesting to notice how satisfying and how satiating good fat can be when you add it to our food. And
Right.
that's the beauty. We don't have to be, as you know, we don't have to be afraid of dietary fat. It's not the culprit. The
Right.
culprit are the carbs that have a multitude of ill effects, that we uh, feel when we get them accidentally, like in a sauce or in
Right.
a variety of condiments or things that we have and can put on our foods. You know it. We feel it once you've
Right.
been off of it for a while. Um, yeah, it's very, very noticeable for
Because
sure.
you said something at one of the meetings that surprised me, and that was shredded cheese had
Yeah.
like extra things in it. And I
Oh,
went home and I'm like, no way, you know? And sure enough, it had all this extra stuff in it.
didn't it just make you nuts? And here we are. I think about the times when I was just going in and making my perfect low carb grocery basket, with
Right.
my cheeses and my sour cream. And I was thinking, well, life is so busy. If I can just shave off a few extra minutes and have the convenience of the shredded cheese,
Right.
I'm. But then I don't know what made me look at the back of a shredded cheese package. But it was one day it was it was like around Thanksgiving, maybe 2 years ago. Um, I looked at the ingredients and it had cornstarch in it, and
I
I was
know.
like, "What? You have got joking. And you know what? It was interesting. I did a little experiment. I had kind of plateaued, and so for like the next 3 weeks, I shredded my own cheese, and I really think, I was that sensitive to it. I was able to break a plateau pretty significantly just by grating my own cheese, not changing anything else in my diet except for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just really, you know, they use it obviously in foods to keep it from, or in cheese in this case, to keep it, from sticking together in
Right.
shipment or after it's been grated. But yeah, we gotta watch it. We gotta watch it because the food companies are wanting freshness and convenience and
Right.
uh, don't want spoilage. Well, that's all well, fine and good for some and maybe some people in the population, but I just cannot. And so I've gone to shredding my own cheese from that point
Well, I
forward.
know when I went home and I read, and I'm like, corn, whatever it was. I'm like, I just couldn't believe it. And
Yeah.
it's like, you just never know.
It's crazy. The other one to watch out for is tapioca starch. Anything that is
Right.
and there we go again now with the whole gluten free. I
Right.
know this is a big thing I learned. Gluten free doesn't necessarily mean low carb.
Right.
I was like, what? There were a couple of times Dr. Westman has said some stuff that, first of all, the number one was you got to eat fat to lose fat. And I remember looking at him like, you have got to be losing my mind for me right now. Say what um, and I'm sure my face probably showed it, but I was like, what? And the other one was, this bit about gluten free is not low carb, but low carb will be gluten free. You could bank on that,
Right.
which that kind of does a mind number on you there.
Right.
But
Now, do you
just
think about calories at all now?
well, I'll put it to you this way. I have not counted calories in years,
Right.
which is, if you had ever told me that could be a possibility, I wouldn't have believed it. But I'm not counting calories, but I am aware of quantity.
Right.
Um, just because it's low carb for me doesn't mean that I can just eat as much as I want.
Right.
Um, I'm getting closer to goal now, or
Right.
to where I really, where I
Right.
would love to see myself get. Um, so I know that it's not going to take as much food for me to feel good,
Right.
to feel full, to feel satiated.
Right.
My body is still burning, some burning fat,
Right.
and so I don't get crazy hungry. I don't have those up down swings, but I do find that I monitor, I kind of watch. And in fact, it's interesting you should ask that because I'm I'm consciously kind of looking at my portions this week, just to help me get. I've got about 3 more pounds of the Christmas holiday
Right.
uh, weight that I put on eating macadamia and nuts. I love
Right.
macadamia.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah, they can almost taste sweet,
Yes.
without on their own. Food tastes so good, and that's another thing I really have noticed. But yeah, I'm just watching portion to
Mm-hmm.
help, to help me maybe get a little bit of the extra off that I think I gained over the holiday. But the fact of the matter is, if we're focusing on doing, um, what we know
Right.
is the right thing to do, if we're following kind of our plan, and putting our good knowledge to use, then our bodies are gonna come along. We don't have to fret about it. We don't have to, get the our stress hormones going. We don't have to stress out about it. We
Right.
just follow the plan, and our bodies will come along.
Now, I've
There's a
been reading quite a bit about coconut oil,
mm-hmm.
and how beneficial that can be in your diet. Do you consider, or does Dr. Westman consider that as a good fat?
Oh, definitely. I can't, what is it? A medium chain? Ah, I'm blanking on it right now. But it is one of the oils, one of the good fats that um, that is encouraged along
Mm-hmm.
with olive oil, along with butter, in terms of consumption. I like to put this is going to sound bizarre, but I probably put a teaspoon. I don't have any coconut oil right now in the
Mm-hmm.
house, but when I have it, I put a teaspoon of it in my coffee in the morning, and along with a little bit of heavy whipping cream. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you what, I can go, I could work 12 hours. And I have some wacky days where
Right.
that, but I will not. I mean, I don't even. It's like it kills my appetite. I don't know. There's something about it. At least for me. I don't
Right.
know. Some other folks may not experience that, but it's been a delicious ingredient to add to my low carb repertoire. I think I'll fry eggs in it. Scrambled eggs, or
Mm-hmm.
let's I've even used oopsie rolls, which is kind of a low carb standard recipe, that ends up looking something like a bit of a pancake. But I've baked my oopsie rolls and then turned them into pancakes by just kind of flipping them in some, um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Cracking on.
in a pan of olive oil. It kind of gives them a crispy
Right.
pancake-like texture, and it's pretty darn good. So, yeah.
So you eat, so it's not just about protein, it's the increase in fat.
Absolutely. This was something I really learned about this year. In May, or this past year, in May of 2012, I went on the fifth annual low carb cruise that Jimmy
Mhm.
Moore and, oh gosh, some of the big names in ketogenic diet, low carb diet,
Right.
medical professionals, researchers, as well as lay people go on every year. The next one's coming up in May of this year as well. Anyway, Dr. Volek, Jeff Volek from the University of Connecticut was one of the guest speakers, along with Dr. Westman and Dr. John Britva and Dr. William Davis, the author of Wheat Belly, in addition to Jackie Eberstein, and Dr. Mary Vernon, all the big names in
Right.
carving were there. Dr. Volek was talking about in his new book, The Art and Science of Low Carb uh, Performance. He was talking about the importance of fat, the role it plays in nutrient. And one of the things I learned was that if you eat too much protein, that it can be metabolized as glucose. So, one of the things that I've done to kind of help give me that push toward my last, toward losing these last maybe 10, 15, pounds, is upping my fat. So I would say there's a lot of information out there right now on the internet about nutritional ketosis, especially Jimmy Moore has
Right.
done a fabulous job of documenting his journey with kind of going into this, using nutritional ketosis to really help him. I think he's lost something like 60 pounds since May, by upping his fat intake. So, again, um, nutritional ketosis, switching the body from a glucose burning engine to a fat burning engine, and really finding those optimal levels for that. Jimmy's done a beautiful job of documenting that, and I'd
And
say for interested in learning more to take a look at his blogs on that.
yeah, his is Living La Vida Low Carb, I believe. I followed him for years, and I've been interested in seeing these last, the change and documenting everything. Excuse me.
Sure. Bless you.
I have a tickle in my throat. Well, I know, excuse me, on the low carb support group that people are constantly exchanging recipes and, there's so many blog sites and things that are out there that show the low carb recipes. And it's just, like using the cauliflower instead of potatoes and some of the recipes. Is there any like go-to thing that you have?
Oh yeah, I would say probably my favorite is just the Jamie Van Eaton on your lighter side .com has fabulous recipes there. You do have
Repeat
to.
that.
Sure, it's your lighter side. Why your let's see, yourlighterside.com.
Okay.
And the famous one of her famous recipes is called the Oopsie Roll,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Atkins Revolution roll with modification. But basically, it's an egg separated and an ounce of, I'm just taking it basic recipe,
Right.
of cream cheese, full fat cream cheese, and you whip up the egg white until it's nice and meringue. It looks like a meringue, very fluffy, and
Right.
then you put in the egg and the an ounce of cream cheese. You can expand that recipe. If you're going to have 3 eggs, then you need 3 ounces of cream cheese, or
Right.
you you can increase the recipe. Um, I will sometimes put, say per egg, a teaspoon of protein powder, a nice quality protein powder.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a little more bread-like texture, and you mix all of this together. Again, the recipe's on Jamie's website,
Mm-hmm.
but up into a bun. I almost like little cream buns. They're so good, and you can make them either sweet or savory, depending on what you want to do with it.
Right.
I actually made my birthday cake. I turned 52 in, let's see, 2 weeks ago. And I just made up a dozen eggs and 12 ounces of cream cheese and into 3 small, round, no, 4 layers of, in the little cake pans. So I made a 4-layer uh, dark a 4-layer oopsie roll cake, sweetened with some stevia, and then I made a what was essentially heavy whipping cream, dark chocolate, stevia, dark chocolate powder, stevia, and a bit of vanilla. Flavoring with a little bit of cinnamon in that, and it made the most delicious dark chocolate buttercream frosting you've ever had.
Wow.
Amazing! That cake bad.
That sounds good. And I think that's the key to anything is like you've made this a lifestyle. So you experiment. It's not same old every day.
It's true.
You've got to get out there and try new things or it's going to get boring.
You're so right. And that, I'm so glad you said that, Cindy, because that really has been one of the big keys for me. I Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up around fabulous cooks. I love food. I love to eat. And I had to find something that was really, going to be sustainable and that would allow me to have variety in my food choices. People at work, it's so interesting. Again, I mentioned I work with medical professionals, and some of them would see me bringing in my food, at lunch, and they would be like, "You can't eat that and lose weight." And about half into my 3 years so far of doing this, they'd be like, "You can eat that." And now it's like, man, I want some of that because it's good.
I think we all agree that bacon is like a staple.
Make it its own food group. It really is. I swear, it is its own food group.
Well, are
So,
there, we're running almost at 9 o'clock, and it has been such a pleasure and joy to have you on here.
Cindy,
Um, I love picking your brain and hearing about your experiences over the last 3 years, because if someone's heavy, then it's very inspirational to see someone that's actually doing it, because so many people tell you, I mean, you read so many things and it's like, 95% of the people that lose weight gain it back, or, they lose part of the weight, but they never get all the way down. And just seeing you, and I mean, 3 years is a good amount of time.
well, you know what? I figured it this way. These 3 years are 3 years I would not have had, honestly, if it hadn't been for Dr. Westman and his work and his commitment and his courage, really, to stand up against the status quo and say, you know what? It's not a one size fits all world.
Right.
Uh, there are different approaches out there, and low fat not going to work for everyone. Um, and this is why we need to consider this low carb, ketogenic diet definitely as a nutritional alternative for people who are struggling with weight,
Right.
and a multitude, not only weight, but high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease, or
Yes.
any of the variety of things we were talking about a little bit earlier. I think the good news is that there is hope out there, and that we don't have to be hungry, and that the science behind this is real, and the truth is stranger than fiction, to tell you the truth. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I had known about 40 years ago, and I wish my mom had known about it too, because I really think she'd still be here with us, with me, if she had. But the big deal is, I think we all have to find what's going to work best for our bodies, and
Right.
um,
And
there's great.
it can be different for everyone.
Exactly. My encouragement would be, just find what's going to work best for you and stick with it,
Right.
and go
And
from
that's
there.
Dr. Eric Westman at the Duke Life. Is it Lifestyle?
Duke Lifestyle Medicine Clinic. You
Okay.
can basically just Google him, Eric, Eric Westman, Westman, at and you can put Duke in there and he'll come right up.
Right. And I know that he has some things on YouTube that discuss the low carb, and also some supplemental documents, like with food list, etc., that are part of that YouTube
Yeah,
documentary or
yeah,
from that.
indeed. Yeah, you can look him up. He's also on Vimeo, Vimeo. You can type in Eric Westman, Vimeo, Vimeo, and it'll come up there for you too.
Okay.
So, yeah, and his information is also in the back of Gary Taub's book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It.
Right. And he actually is the co-author of the new Atkins Diet Revolution, I believe.
It's called The New Atkins for a New You, and
Okay.
he is the lead author, and Dr. Jeff Volek and Dr. Steve Finney are the co-authors with him on that one.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, we are out of time. And again, thank you so much, Lynn. I can't wait to see you next month. And I hope
But
this. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I want to see you before that. You come out to the dance studio with me.
Okay. That will be interesting. Me ballroom dancing. Trust me. All right. Thank you very much. And to everyone out there listening, we hope that this gave you a lot of food for thought.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Enjoy as always. Take good
All
care.
right. You too. Bye-bye. And good night, everyone.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 till 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at NissanCommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.